This is your host, Robin Stuckel, and today we have a topic on that I have been interested in for quite some time. Pickleball. Pickleball is not new. Pickleball was started in 1965 on Bainbridge Island, Washington, and was started by three dads. This is one of the fastest growing sports in the United States. The reason why it's interesting is because I have been hearing about pickleball, 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 pickleball. And while I live in the Midwest in Madison, Wisconsin, it is now becoming a hot topic in this region, or at least so I think. Today we have Joannie Rich on, and she is going to talk to us all about pickleball, how she got started, why it's such a craze, her I would say insights or perceptions about pickleball in the beginning and how she is now somewhat obsessed with pickleball. We'll go into fitness, nutrition, and then our favorite topic, 29029. Welcome to the podcast, Joni.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us about pickleball and how you got started.
So I was trying to think about when I did start, and it probably had to be about 5 years ago. And so I spent my summers on the Jersey Shore, and a friend of mine, and I was a big tennis player. My husband's a bigger tennis player than I. And my girlfriend said to me, I was playing tennis. She goes, "Why don't we go down and I want you to try pickleball?" And I absolutely had no interest. I thought it was stupid. I thought it was for old people. I really didn't even know what it was, but I had a feeling it was like the ugly stepchild to tennis. And if I'm a tennis player, I am not a pickleball player. So I said, I went down with her. I went to the courts and it was packed and there were all these people and music was playing and it was really loud and the banging of the ball. And it was not my thing. I was not into it. I didn't get it. So I sort of played a little bit that day. They threw me in. I didn't know what was going on. I never did it again. And then fast forward that following winter, I was down in Florida playing tennis. And the tennis pro at my club was also the pickleball pro. And when we were done playing, I said, "Can you give me your like pickleball 101, like Cliff Notes version of this sport? People are talking about it. I'm not sure if I get it or not." So she gave me her quick little lesson and she said, "You should come out later. We're having an event called pickles and something or another." I said, "All right, I think I'll try it." So I came home and I said to my husband, "Why don't we go this afternoon at 4 o'clock to this pickleball event?" "I'm not going. That's stupid. It's for old people." I said, "Look, it's something to do. It'll keep us out of the bar a little longer. It's just, let's go try it." So we go and we play, and they gave him the quick lesson too. And they put him on a court with three old guys with like knee braces and they beat him. And if you think I'm competitive, you haven't met my husband yet. That was all it took for him to be like, "That's it. I got to figure this out." And that was sort of how we started playing. It took us a while I always say to people, pickleball, it looks really easy. You're hitting a wiffle ball with a paddle. The sport is as easy or as complicated as you want it to be. So keeping score, sort of complicated. The rules, sort of complicated. Hitting the ball, pretty easy. So the difference I always tell people between, let's say, pickleball and tennis or golf, well, there's many differences, but one of them is that the learning curve is much, much shorter. So if you were to play tennis or golf, there's so much technique involved. It takes years to perfect that. The learning curve in pickleball is considerably shorter. And I think also, as you said, it's one of the fastest growing sports in America. And I think one of the reasons why is the barrier, the cost of entry is incredibly low. So you don't have to belong to a fancy country club. You don't have to take thousands of lessons. A paddle is anywhere from $50 to $250. You only need one. Balls are cheap. You play in public parks, so you don't have to join these fancy clubs and pay for court time. So it's so inclusive to so many different people. Where I play in New Jersey, I play all summer long next to teachers and cops and veterans and firefighters. This is not a country club sport. It's a sport for everybody. And I think that that's one of the reasons why it's so popular. You don't have to, it's great to be in good shape to play. And trust me, it helps when you get to a super competitive level, but anyone can play. Kids play. As a matter of fact, what I didn't know was lots of kids have played in high school, in gym class. So I see kids out there playing like, "Oh, we've been playing this for years in gym class." I said, "You have? I never even heard of it before." So that was sort of how we started, was going to this event. And fast forward, and we'll get into it later, I'm sure. I just actually got off the courts practicing with my husband because we're in a mixed doubles tournament tomorrow.
Ooh,
Uh-huh.
very exciting. I can't wait to hear how that turns out.
Well, last year we actually won the tournament. So there's a lot of pressure to at least, if not win, at least do somewhat well.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. Do you think that he is a little more into it or you're a little more into it? Or are you both about the same level of interest in pickleball?
So he still plays a lot of tennis. I have a pretty arthritic shoulder, and that's another thing. I can't play tennis, but I can play pickleball still. It's the impact of a wiffle ball hitting the paddle is much different and lighter than a heavy tennis ball hitting a heavy racket with strings. So I can still play. He still does both. What I do that he doesn't do, I have a group of girlfriends. I spend my winters in Florida. I'm down here right now, and I have a crew of friends down here. We travel and play tournaments together. So that he does not delve into tournament play like I do. He'll do the local stuff and our club stuff like this tomorrow, but my girlfriends and I will literally travel around South Florida, spend the night in hotels and do the whole thing. And sometimes I'll play, two divisions. I'll do mixed and I'll do ladies doubles in a tournament. And this is amateur. So, the levels in pickleball start at somewhere 2-5 or 3-0 and go all the way up to 5-0. And I'm a 3-5, maybe a 4-0 on a good day. Last year my partner and I played in, don't laugh, the US Open of pickleball, which is
Awesome.
it's the biggest tournament in the world in Naples. It's huge. And we played in the 3-0 division because the level play is so good there. And we made it to the finals of 3-0, lost in the finals. So now we always play 3-5, and 3-5 is still incredibly competitive. And, I tell people all the time, because as the sport gets more and more popular and more people are playing, the level 3-5 is much harder than it was a few years ago. So I started playing 3-5, actually went down to 3-0 and back up to 3-5 because as more people played, they just got better and better. And I've spent a lot of time taking lessons and drilling and understanding really the game. And there's a lot of strategy. It is not just whacking a ball around. You can do that, but you're not going to do well. You really have to think about, where you're putting the ball. And a lot of that takes work learning how to put the ball in certain places. And it sounds so silly because I know, first of all, the name of the game is silly, pickleball. I always say if it had any other name, it would be a much cooler sport. It's definitely not the best name for a sport. I'm numb to it. I don't notice anymore, but there's a lot to learn in the game. And if you watch pros play, their hands are so fast. It's so fun to watch. I mean, we're not at that level, but we would love to be.
How would you get there? If you were to be at the pro level, what would you need to do in order to get there?
So I know a few pros, and I will say that most of the pros come from a very strong tennis background. As a matter of fact, I think if you were really to look up the history of most pickleball pros, I bet you it's like 95% played tennis, college tennis. I think he's number 4 in the world, Jay DeVilliers. Actually, I made him dinner like 2 weeks ago, and he played college tennis, as did his wife. And his wife, I think, was actually on the pro women's tour before she switched to pickleball. Now she's home with her kids now, and he's playing pro. But they put a lot of time in. These guys, it's time. It's a full-time thing for most pros. I mean, I've read funny things about one guy that's a lawyer during the week and playing pro on the weekend, but I think that's the exception to the rule.
Probably. What type of fitness would you have to have as a beginner in pickleball?
That's a very good question. I think that I would say, for me, it's not to get ahead of ourselves, but for me, it's my cardio workout to get ready for climbing the mountain because I hate being on cardio machines. So it's, definitely having a good cardio background would be helpful. And it's the same thing I would tell you in any sport, learning, having strong legs, getting low. One of the things we talk about pickleball is getting low to get to the ball. So there's a lot of squatting going on. And when you first start, you're getting low and you don't know any better and you lean forward all the time. And my husband and I would always get off the courts and we'd say, why does our back hurt so bad the next day? Why is our back? Well, because we were leaning instead of squatting. So strong legs, but you're going to hear me talk a lot about strong legs for the next hour because I'm a big believer in strong legs for everything. So, but in general, listen, and you've seen me, being fit for anything is going to help you, whether it's for a sport or something mental or anything. I mean, I think that training all the time for anything is good for us all over, not just the pickleball court.
Agreed. Agreed. Healthy living.
With
Healthy
maybe a little bit of unhealthy living.
Our listeners can see it on YouTube, but for those of you listening on your favorite Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Joni has a bottle of wine in the background, and it looks actually really good.
It's not from this morning. It's not from today. It's from a last night.
Sure, sure, sure it is, Joni. Let's get into fitness.
Talk to me.
Yeah, beginners. So somebody like myself, I did meet you on the mountain for all of our listeners. They know that I am obsessed with 29029. They know that
Are
the
you more
mountains,
obsessed than me? Are you more obsessed than me?
uh, not yet. I'm getting there. Our listeners do know that the mountain spoke to me on my fifth ascent at night, and the mountain told me it's just my beginning. It's the beginning of my fitness journey. I have been working with Ashley Randall, who I've also had on the podcast before. She is a 29029 coach.
Oh, she's the
And
best.
yeah, she is wonderful. And really, my fitness journey has really started, even though I felt like I've been in fitness for, and I won't say fitness, I've been active or moving my body for years and years. But again, you don't know what you don't know until you do an event and you think back and, oh my gosh, I thought I was doing the right thing, but now it's the next level. And then a few months later, it's the next level. And then as Ashley and I are working on building strength and endurance, it's weightlifting. Some of my friends know that I've just started using a barbell, which it's 44 pounds at my gym, and I think it's heavy. I can't wait for 6 months down the road when I'm doing different deadlifts and I am increasing my fitness, increasing my cardio by doing additional longer workouts and walks and jogs. And I think something that I liked what you said earlier about pickleball is it doesn't have to be a full out run. You don't have to do a marathon. You don't have to do an ultra. Little things can get you really big results.
Exactly. I think that's really true. So, and I might have mentioned this to you before, but the very first 29029 I did, and for your listeners that don't know, I've done it 9 times. So it's the mountain calls my name frequently, and I respond every single time. But for when we did our first 29029 in 2017, I registered as soon as it opened up, and they talked about it in July. And we were on the mountain 3 months later, and there was no training program. There was no nothing. All I knew was that I had to climb this mountain 17 times, and I was living on the Jersey Shore at sea level. And I thought, how am I possibly going to get ready to do this? I've never done an ultra event in my life. I've never done a 36-hour event in my life. And I don't know if you read the story, my 2929 story. I said one of the things I was most scared about was, how was I going to stay up all night?
Mhm.
I go to bed 9 o'clock. Like, this is
Yeah.
not my wheelhouse. What was in my wheelhouse was that it wasn't running, and I'm a victim of tearing everything in my body. So my hamstrings don't let me run anymore. But the event sounded awesome to me. And so we didn't have a training program. So I had to come up with what I thought would work. So to me, that was, and I think I'm getting off topic from the question you asked, but about fitness. But to me, I thought to myself, what are the things that I would need
Mhm.
to climb this mountain? And I thought, really strong legs and the ability to be on my feet for a super long period of time. It wasn't about having a high heart rate, because now that you've done it, you can see that's actually the kiss of death, is to get
Yeah.
your heart rate too high. Is
Yeah.
that because it's so long, you want to do something at a heart rate that you could sustain for hours and hours and hours, which is maybe just a little bit above walking, right? You can't, and I see it every time we start an event. And that's why I start typically in the back, because there's a bunch of people that have never done it before, that are overzealous, that want to run up that mountain. And I say, you can run all day long, but I guarantee you can't sustain that. Maybe a few people can, and there always are a few crazy freaks out there that can do it. But 99% of us can't do that and won't do that. And I'll tell you, some of those same people, they started ahead of me. They bragged how great they were going to do. And I passed them on the mountain and watched them vomiting on the side. because they just didn't, like, they didn't know what they didn't know, and they thought they knew it all. And so, for me, having strong legs was really, really important. And doing things like you said, I mean, we worked so much in the gym on deadlifts and squatting and all that kind, and front squat, back squat, all of it, lunges, anything. And so I don't know, even what you saw the other day, what I posted, which was that, climbing up on that box, which was way above my comfort level. And I'm super, super short with super, super short legs. That's not easy for me. But those are the kinds of things that I think help, and my trainer, who is pretty brilliant, helps me a lot with, for sure.
Let, let's go back to 2017. What would you assess your fitness level at the time? And what was your mindset around fitness back in 2017?
Well, I've always been a fitness freak. And
Okay.
so I always loved to work out, and I loved tennis. And when CrossFit came out, I got really excited because CrossFit was essentially the sport of working out. And until then, working out wasn't a sport. It was something you did to stay healthy or because you wanted to look a certain way. But it certainly wasn't a competitive sport. And that's what CrossFit was. And that was pretty, pretty cool. So I had started doing CrossFit, and then I started doing CrossFit competitions because I can't, what I learned very early on when I see people competing at anything was, even if I'm not really good at it, watching it was one thing, but I always wanted to be in it. Like, I wanted to be in the action. I didn't have to win. It just seemed like more fun to be out there doing it than watching on the sidelines, which is why I enter everything. I don't enter because I think I'm good enough to win. I just love being part of the competition, if that
Has
makes any sense. And so when I started doing these 29, it wasn't because I was super good at it that I wanted to do it. It just looked like something I wanted to be a part of.
were
And
you that
you can totally attest this. Now you understand why you want to be a part of it.
yes,
So
very much
even
so.
as a volunteer or on staff, it is a cool place to be.
It is. Were you that way through high school, college?
I was always, I think I started going to the gym in high school. I know I did. And I didn't play any sports in high school, and I wasn't competitive. As a matter of fact, I mean, for those of you who can't see me, I'm extremely short. I'm like maybe 5 foot on a good day. Oh, honestly, probably 4'11". And I worked it, I went to high school, and had a job after school. Like, I didn't have the luxury of playing sports, and I didn't have the luxury of having parents that pushed me to do it. So I really found fitness more when I was in college, and I started running, and that was the era of aerobics. And I was, you name whatever the fad was, I was doing it. And so I really started my real fitness journey. I would say I remember starting to run in college, and I never ran before. And I was living in DC, and I remember one week I wanted to go for a run and get some exercise. And the next I ran, and not very far. And then I decided if I went that far, I was going to go 1 block further every day that I ran. And that was really how I started understanding running. And then I added fitness, I added a lot of weight training and that kind of stuff to it. So it's definitely been a slow and different journey as we've moved around. And then, I'm 54 years old. So I'm not super young. And then I got married, and it was working. So, fitness was before work or after work. And I had learned very early on, I was working at Goldman Sachs, that if I didn't get up and work out before work, by the time I got home or we worked late, it wasn't going to happen. And that was a really interesting epiphany for me that I hold true to this day. I don't care if I go to bed at 9 o'clock or 1 in the morning. I still get up at 5 and work out every morning. It's a better way to start the day. When I don't, I feel like I am constantly chasing my tail and I forgot to do something. So, they say that early risers are very effective people and get a lot done. I completely believe that. I also believe when you work out at 5:30 in the morning, it's too early to make phone calls. It's too early to start sending emails and texts. So you're not that distracted. And so that's sort of so I learned that working. And then, fast forward, and I got married and I had kids. And the same thing was, if I didn't get up and work out before my kids got up and my babies got up, it was never going to happen. And so it's been something that's continued through my life. And even now, guess what? I'm an empty nester. I don't have to do it anymore, but I find that I get the best workout then. It's the most effective, and I feel great the rest of the day. And then the bonus is, if you have free time later in the day, you can go do it again.
Very true. Very true.
Exactly. So a
Mhm.
lot of times I'll do that. I'm like, oh, you know what? It's lunchtime. There's boot camp. My girlfriends are going to be there. I always say I'd rather go work out with them than go eat with them.
Mhm. I hear
So
ya.
that's sort of my philosophy.
Being on the mountain in 2017, going through that first event, talk us through a little bit about uh, preparing in 3 months, but then let's talk a little bit more about mindset because when I was on the mountain with you in Stratton, we ran into each other a couple of times. I am very amazed at your mindset and that you have accomplished 29029 9 times. Tell us about any types of hurdles, maybe that first year, certainly through any of the other years and mountains. How do you get through that? How do you get past that every single time? That's amazing to me.
So, well, first I'll start with preparing. Again, the only thing I thought was time on my feet, because we were going to be on them a lot. So I would take a walk on the beach, and then I'd go work out, and then I'd get on my paddleboard, and then I'd go play pickleball. So to me, being active, time on your feet was training, as far as I'm concerned. I still believe that. And your listeners aren't going to like this, and I probably shouldn't say it. And I hope the wrong people don't hear this, but I don't even follow the training program because I know what works for me, and that's what works for me. Had I been starting from zero, would I look at the training program? Absolutely. If I had no fitness background, would I be looking at it? Absolutely. I think it has a lot of running in it. Doesn't really help me anyway. As far as mindset, I didn't know what to expect. And for your listeners that know 29 to 29, when we did it in 2017, and Colin O'Brady and Mark will tell you the same story, it had a very different format to it. We started on a Friday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We had to be off the mountain by Saturday night at 6 o'clock. We had a sit down dinner for all of us upstairs in the lodge. And only a very small handful of people had finished at that time. And we were allowed back on the mountain, I think at 6 a.m. Sunday morning. Yes. So, and one of the other things that happened with that first year was, I believe they didn't have, it was really, 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 really windy Friday night. And I was with two girlfriends. We had climbed all day. We were all at dinner. They said, we're done for the night. I said, I'm going to go out and do one more. Well, I think I might have done two more. I don't really remember. All I can tell you, it was wind was whipping at our faces, and they shut the gondolas down. And they had a fleet of Suburbans to drive us down the backside of the mountain. And it wasn't a straight shot. So the ride down the mountain took like at least, I felt like a half hour, and it very well could have been. And it was basically switchbacks that would go back and forth. So now it had to be like, it was pretty late at night. We started at 2 o'clock. It had to be, oh yeah, it definitely was past midnight. And it was basically me and a bunch of guys in the Suburban. And they were sleeping. They were going to go straight through. So every time they'd get in the Suburban, they'd sleep. Well, I was so wound up with energy. I'm talking to the driver, he's telling me how he builds the half pipe in the winter, and this, that, the other thing, and all about the mountain. And I'm asking him questions. And finally they would yell at these guys, shut up. Oh, and they smelled so bad. It was a completely different experience than what we do now. So that was my first experience. But as far as mindset, I went in it thinking, we had to do 17 ascents. So I thought, okay, I'll do 9 the first day and 8 the second day. Well, that's really fine and all. Matter of fact, they didn't even tell us to bring hiking poles. We got to the mountain and we took a look at it, and we did a test run, and we were like, this is not easy. We
No.
went down to the ski shop, and I hiked my first year with ski poles. That was all I could buy at the last minute. So the mindset was, we didn't really have a mindset. Like, we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. There were bands there Saturday night, next to the campsite. So people were trying to sleep, and there were bands playing with bars. And I mean, it was a completely different, well, they figured out after the first year what they needed to do differently. And then really the event was born into what now as starting Friday morning at 6 a.m. and finishing Saturday night by 6 p.m. As far as mindset, this is what I'll say. For 36 hours, I have nothing else to do but climb that mountain. Those 36 hours are not about my family. My life is about my family, but for those 36 hours, it's sort of about me, as selfish as that is. And so I have nothing else to do. I don't have emails to answer. I don't have things to deal with. I have prepared for this meticulously for 36 hours of my life. It's a day and a half of your entire life. So nothing else should be a distractor. And I remember thinking to myself, I opened my big fat mouth and told everybody I was going to do this thing. Hell if I'm not finishing it, you know? And I'm not big into mantras, and I know that a lot of us are, and it's very, very helpful. The one mantra that I definitely listened to from Chad Wright was don't give your pain a voice. So stop if my knee starts to bug me, I'll think to myself, oh, my knee's bugging me, but I don't give it life. I move on to the next thought. I don't want to give it any more life than that. And sometimes you can will it away. I know it sounds ridiculous. I think it sounds ridiculous, but it's worked. It's absolutely worked. So, when you ask me about mental toughness, I don't know that I have a stock answer for that. I just know that when I'm there, I have one goal, and it's to finish. And I know that what works for me is to go slow and steady. You've seen me. I am not a fast hiker. Everybody in the world will pass me. I've got short legs and I am slow, but what I can do is go slow and steady forever. And, I spoke one year on a panel before we started, and we had, everybody asked all kinds of great questions, and we had a really good conversation. And the one thing I said, can I say one more thing? I said, look, I know you guys train with headphones. I train with headphones and music, and I know it gets us through. But I will tell you, I do not hike with headphones. I want to be so present and in what's going on. I want to hear the nature around me. I want to hear the people in front of and behind me. I want to hear them talking. I want to talk with them. And I think that you lose a lot if you don't engage in the event and really dive in. And to me, it's a very isolating thing, and it doesn't help you so much. And so, and I always say, like, if you're climbing up the mountain and you come up to someone, you say, hey, how you doing? And they got their head like, that's not what this event's about. It's about cheering each other on. And, I think too, because it's not a competition, it's a challenge, albeit ridiculously hard, and it's doable. When you take race off the charts, and the competitive level is gone. No one's trying to beat anybody. I'll stop, I'll talk to you, I'll help you, I'll sit in an aid station with you. No skin off my back, right? It helps you a little bit, and it takes that competitive edge away. It's just something we need to finish. We don't need to win at. For some people, that's a very, very hard mentality to understand. They will still look at it as a race. I have a girlfriend that did. She couldn't get out of that race mentality. She really struggled because she would try to go really fast, then she would gas out, then she would do it again. Like, she just couldn't understand. You just need to finish. So, that's, for me, that's also part of the mentality, is we just got to get it done. And this, you do a couple of ascents, you start to look at your watch, and you think to yourself, all right, I know what my average is. It's probably going to get a little slower every time. What do I need to do? Where am I? And you do the math and you can figure it out. I have never in 9 events gone straight through. I always go to bed. I always take a nap. Still going to finish. I'd rather finish feeling good. I always tell people, when you get really tired, you hike sloppily. When you hike sloppily, that's when you get injured. You don't want to do that. And you don't have to if you do it right. Look, again, I'm not fast at all. So it's not like you're talking to somebody who's a champion climber. I'm just a slow and steady and smart one. So a lot of it's about being smart. And the same thing about training. Training is about being smart. So, what works for you when you're training? Doing the same thing every day does not work. Number one, it's boring. So you'll probably quit at it. And it doesn't serve your body well either. So, it's about doing things different every day, but keeping your eye on that mountain and, the different things you need to do. So what I'll always tell you, strong legs, strong calves. When we started working with one of my trainers a couple of years ago, and we really concentrated on calves, I can tell you the amount of pain I had in my Achilles was significantly less than before. Lesson learned. So I have had bad experiences on the mountain. Utah was one. So the first year I did it, there was Vermont. The second year, was there Vermont and Utah? I can't remember, but whenever the first Utah was, my son was moving into college that week. So kids come first. I'm like, as much as I'd love to check out Utah, I'm moving my son into school. And I think he must have either been a sophomore or a junior, I'm getting my years confused. But my son was moving into a dorm and he's like, Mom, I don't need you to move me in. And I said, you don't? I'm like, Utah's calling my name. So that
But you
was,
were probably right on the phone right away, like in his
oh,
dorm
you
room, like,
kidding me? I think I texted Matt Burrell in like 3 seconds. And I said, is there room for me? I can go. And so I get to Utah. It must have been the second time they did Utah because I definitely missed the first one.
so I'm wondering if that was 2019.
It had to be. No, wait. We'd have to go back and look at, you know what? I'm so bad at dates.
That's okay.
I've done Utah twice. So I would have done it. I did it this past year, which was 2022. So it's 2021.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
did Utah 2021. And I had come off of previously, I was going to do, wait,
Did you
I
do
did
Idaho?
I did Idaho.
Okay.
And Idaho was post-COVID. And so we missed a year of climbing. And we get to Idaho and I fly up that mountain. And it was a hard mountain, but I
I
think
was gonna say, Idaho, I heard was very difficult.
it was very difficult. And as Jesse Itzler says, there's a reason they call that place Sun Valley. It's hot as hell. 6 at night, it's like the peak of heat. It's really hot. It to me, I can't explain it to you. None of those things mattered. I flew up that mountain. I loved it. I think I just loved being back on the mountain again. And it was, I won't say it was easy, but I was just thrilled to be there. I finished. It was all great. So fast forward, now I'm going to Utah. I get to Utah and I think I started a little cocky thinking it was going to be like just as easy as the last one. It was hot. It was steep. It was long and I was tired. And when I tell you it sucked, every step stunk. I was slow. I was miserable. I just couldn't get it together. And I can't tell you why. It's not that I wasn't in shape. It's not that I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I think that on any given day, your mind and your body just aren't on the same page.
Mhm.
And this mind and body could not get it together. That was the first time they had a Sherpa group. And basically, if you went up with the Sherpa group, you were guaranteed to finish on time. Well, I can tell you, when the Sherpa group passed me and asked me if I wanted to join, and I had to pass, I was like, this is absolutely the worst period of my life. I mean, literally, the Sherpa group was like, see you later. I'm like, yeah, okay. It was just one of those days. I did finish. It wasn't pretty, but I did finish. And I cried my eyes out when I crossed that line because I dug as deep as I've ever dug. And I was confused because I had done it so many times before. I thought maybe like, who am I fooling? Like, what a fraud. Like, I'm not that good at this shit. Like I stunk at it that day. And I swore I hated that mountain and I swore I'd never go back again. So the next year I said that I wanted to do all three. And my husband said, you're going to go back to Utah. You hate that mountain. I said, I know. I said, but I feel like I need some kind of revenge or something. Like I feel like I feel like I can do better. And I don't want to leave with that as crappy as I did with even with the crappy feeling and a crappy attitude. I want to love it. And I just felt like it wasn't my day. And I went back last year and I definitely did it 100. I went in with a different mindset too. I went in with, you don't know it all and you don't know what the weather is going to be like. And this could stink and just get ready. It's going to be long and it's going to be hard. And it's not going to be as easy as some of the other ones. It was, I think changing my mindset and changing the way I looked at it helped me tremendously. And I would tell that and I would say that many people like you who want to go back and do it again, now you know exactly where you need to be. And you've talked to enough people and you've listened to them and you've heard their stories and you physically and mentally know how you want to tackle it differently. Look, I had to do it. I finished the first time. I just didn't like the way I finished. I didn't like the way I felt. I didn't like the way I felt the entire time there. And I didn't want to feel like that again. And I knew there was a better way to do it. So yes, have they all been awesome? Absolutely not. No way. It was, I don't want to, the humiliating is the wrong word. It wasn't humiliating. It was frustrating. So I think what happened out of that was I actually learned much more. And the other thing I remember thinking is, this is how a lot of people feel out here when they're just struggling. And up until then, I always had a smile on my face, talking to everybody. Like, this is what it feels like when you're not happy and when you can't talk and it stunk. And it gave me a real appreciation for how other people feel. And it's why I help so many people on the mountain now, because I totally get it. Look, they don't want to be patronized, and they don't want to be right. They don't want to be
Oh,
patronized at
no,
all.
I
And
don't
I
want anybody patronizing me as I'm
exactly
gasping for air going up this mountain that I had.
right. You don't want them feeling sorry for you. And I would never want them to feel that way. But there's nothing wrong with saying, you got this. Take a rest, take a breath. You got, and that's typically what I'll tell people. I didn't even know this. Matt sent it to me. He's like, did you read the story? And I hadn't read the guy's story. Well, apparently I'm in it because I told him to go take a nap. And that was
Oh,
the big
that
difference.
was, I think you and I are both in the same story. Was
I think
that,
we are. Yes.
you and I are both in that story. It's from Albert, my good
And
friend Albert.
I told him to take a nap. I go, what are you doing? I said, don't be a hero. I said, go in and sleep. You've got plenty of time. And that's what I always say to people. You got a day and a half to do this. It's a really long time.
Mhm.
You know, for anybody who thinks that if they go to sleep, they're going to get up and their body is not going to respond. I can tell you I've done this 9 times. I've slept every single time. And 2 things I can tell you is, one is your adrenaline keeps you going. And the other, it's in some crazy way, your body knows you're not done yet. And it's ready for you to go back out again. If it only happened to me once, I'd say it was a freak thing. It's happened every single time for me.
Yeah.
Couple hours of recovery is very, very important. So that's my bad mountain story.
What's your best mountain story?
Oh, well, there's a bunch of them. I mean, obviously finishing 9 was really cool.
Yes.
But one of my favorites is probably number 6 in Vermont, because when I decided to do all 3, what I didn't know was Tom Zebley had also decided to do the complete series of 3.
Oh,
And I had known him sort of a little bit, not really. We ran into each other in Idaho. We realized we knew we were both going to do all 3. I got to Utah, and I don't know how many people know Thomas, or if you know Thomas, but he's incredible. And he encourages a lot of people that work for him to do 29 and make sure that they get there. He's got a lot of people involved in it. And his company is called Impact. And there's always an impact crew at 29. And I got to Utah and I didn't know a soul. And my husband said, who are you going to climb with? I go, I got this. I go, I know enough people there. I'll be fine. Well, let me tell you, that impact team took me in like one of their own. Thomas and his wife, Jen, and everybody, we had so much fun before we started and when we were done. And in between, we cheered each other on. And so having Thomas there was really special to me. But what the best part was when we got to Vermont. So we were both finishing our 3rd, and we were both going to have 6 finishes together, which was going to be the most. And at this point now, Thomas and I and Jen have become very, very close. They're great friends. And I'm climbing in Vermont, and I don't see Thomas at all. So we're definitely on different time frames that, when I'm up, he's down. So we just never, finally, I remember texting him, I'm like, are you even at this mountain? Because I don't think you're here. And we joked around a little bit, and we were texting back and forth because we really didn't see each other. And he said, let's wait and do number 17, like our 17th ascent together. And so he was done. I was right behind him, and we had this massive rainstorm, and I was soaking wet from head to toe. And I said, Thomas, I'm not going up like this. I got to go change my clothes. Meanwhile, he wanted to get done. So he goes, I'll eat breakfast. I'll wait for you. He ate breakfast. I went back to my room, put dry clothes on, and we did our number 17 together. And we didn't shut up. We talked the entire time. We flew up the mountain because we were so busy talking, and we finished arm in arm. And it was a really special thing that year. And we had done 3 events. We were exhausted mentally and physically. We had become very, very close. And we had this bond that I knew nobody else had. And they watched us finish together. It was really, really special to have been on that journey with him through that entire season. And Jen too, because she's definitely she's incredible. That was a really special one for me. They're all special. That one was. The other one that was really special wasn't necessarily my finish, but if you go back to Vermont, oh boy, it had to be 2019. My girlfriend Lisa, who's been with me who started with me in 2017, has had some health issues. continues to climb, even though it's not easy for her. And we got up and she was really racing the clock to finish. And there are videos of her finishing and us hugging and crying. Sorry.
It's
If you
very,
knew,
I'm not an emotional
if,
person and I'm on the verge of tears.
if you knew her and you knew how hard she dug that day, and I wanted her to finish so damn bad. It was, and you watch the videos, they are so special because look, I'm gonna finish. It's not that exciting. It's more exciting to watch the people that are fighting so hard. And for multiple reasons. Her health is a barrier for her.
Yeah.
And she was not gonna let that stop her. And I will let her tell her story. Her story is amazing. It's not my story to tell, but it was incredible. Sorry, I didn't see this coming.
Again, I'm not an emotional person and I'm on the verge of,
Neither am I. That's the funny thing.
you've put me on
Because
the
I
verge of
really actually
tears
forgot about
twice.
the story till just now.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. How do you like that? Look what
I
you
think
did
you,
to me.
yeah, great. Now I'm going to get in trouble. I'll get an email from Matt Burrell here pretty soon.
Actually, he probably remembers that story too. That was a
I'm
good
sure
one.
he does.
That was a good one.
That's one of the things that we've both hit on in several previous podcasts. I've had lots of 29ers on, and with us discussing today, the sense of community is unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. I started showing horses with my dad and stepmom way back in late 70s, early 80s. That community was amazing. Anytime that you join a gym or you have a bunch of college girlfriends, guys that are guy friends, this community trumps everything. I mean, this community is something that I have just never experienced. It's amazing, and I do think a part of it is the non-competitive nature. We're here to support and encourage. And my goal for Stratton in last year, 2022, was one ascent. I knew I was not in shape, and I knew I didn't have the endurance. I mean, I've walked a half marathon before, but come on, that's 13.1 miles, and that was in 2009.
And that's
So we're
flat, by
talking
the way.
flat. Yeah, and we're talking about, I was 52, 53. I'm 53. And it was something that Jeremy Newsom had talked to me about and said, "Come on, let's go do it." So my very first goal was one ascent. I finished my first ascent. Matt Scaletti was there cheering me on. I've had him on the podcast. He is a 29er,
And
also,
he's a great cheerleader,
and also a wonderful volunteer,
for
alumni
sure.
volunteer. Two of my friends were there, and I remember saying to them, "Don't ever let me do this again. This is the worst experience of my life. Like, I do not know what I was thinking. This is way out of my league. This is absolutely horrible." I went up for number two. So the other really important thing for me was to have Colleen help me brand the board for my very first ascent ever. So that was super emotional for me.
Oh, for sure.
Again, not an emotional person by any stretch of anybody's imagination. My mother calls me the cold soul. So go up number two. I'm thinking, this is terrible. I don't know what I'm doing. And I decided, you know what? It's kind of not about me anymore. I did my very first goal. My second goal was to hit 5, which I eventually did. But something that struck me was that so many people on Saturday afternoon kept thanking me as they came up in their red bibs for cheering them on the mountain, because I swear everybody passed me at least 2 or 3 times on the mountain. I did not care. I had already hit my number 1 goal. I was super proud of myself. I was there with friends. I was there with my coach. That was super important to me. When I got done and came home, I still received so many Instagram comments about, "Thank you for, be my, can we be friends? Thank you for helping me get up the mountain." And I started really taking a look. I didn't remember some people, but I thought, wow, I must have really made an impact. And that is so helpful for when you were talking about the aid station and giving words of encouragement or sitting down with somebody for a couple of minutes. People did that for me too, Joni, and I can't tell you how special that is. So thank you from the bottom of my cold soul heart that you do that and other people do it too, because that's the other thing that makes this community amazing.
Well, I'll tell you something else. And we talk a lot about, how long is each ascent going to take? And I said, it's not just how quick it takes you to get up the mountain. I said, and I feel a real affinity towards the volunteers at the aid stations where they want to talk to you and help you. So sometimes I'm in a rush and I'll have a sip and go, but I sort of want to thank them and hang with them. So I'll talk with them for a minute or two before I go. Sometimes I'm not going to lie. I want to get, while I'm feeling good, I want to make hay while the sun shines. But I feel like I owe so much to them to hang and chat with them sometimes if I feel well enough. I mean, there's sometimes you don't feel good and you're like, I don't have it in me now. I don't have it in me now. But anyone who's ever met Cowbell Rob in 1,000 years, first of all, the guy's the most energetic. I mean, there were a couple volunteers that will always stand out to me, and Rob obviously being one of them. You just want to talk to him. And, he and I became friendly when we realized that we both had the same last name. And we had this thing going, and it was between me and his wife. There's two Mrs. Riches. There's me and his wife. But I owe something to those people as well. I will never forget when I was in Idaho and the sun was beating down, and I get to the aid station and they go, "What do you need?" I said, "Who has sunscreen?" And they go, "Put your arms out." Like, they sprayed me with sunscreen. I just meant, who has it so I can put some on. I didn't expect them to lather me with sunscreen. So, it is a special, special kind of place. But I feel like we did get off topic because you did want to talk to me about more than climbing. So what else did you want to, we should go back to whatever you really did want to ask me about.
I really want to ask you more about fitness and nutrition. I do feel that nutrition is very important, especially to beginners like myself. Do we know what we should be eating? Okay, fruits and vegetables, but I do remember asking several questions to the community about nutrition, and I felt like I didn't get the answers that I really needed.
Right.
And then I had asked a couple people who were very experienced, saying, "Am I making too much of this? Is it really just cutting out the processed food?" I'm not a pop soda drinker, so that was
Right.
never a thing for me.
Right.
But and then I'm going to go back to, that's going to be my mantra: what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what healthy nutrition looks like. And now add on doing training or endurance or 8 hours at a time. So talk us through
So
nutrition.
So that's a good question. So first of all, let me start by saying I'm really not qualified to speak about nutrition. I'm not a nutritionist. I can only tell you what I do and what's worked for me. I am a certified personal trainer, so that's more where I feel like I can say something and have something behind it. But what I tell everybody is this, and it almost does, it's a great time to figure out your nutrition while you're training, because that's the time to figure it out. So, for one thing, I stay away from sugar. Sugar to me is the devil. If I'm going to eat sugar, I eat it in its natural form, out of fruit or something like that. Um, and I always tell people this, play with food, play with what you eat. How do you feel after you eat this? How do you train after you eat it? How do you perform? How do you sleep? Do you feel it digest? Does it digest? Is it hard on your system? Are you miserable afterwards? And so I always say, play with foods and see how you perform best. Should they be, I mean, healthy eating is easy for me because I just don't like junk food and I don't like the way I feel when I eat junk food. So for me, it's been very easy for me. My husband looks at me, he's like, "Thank God I live with you. I weigh 1,000 pounds." Like, I just can't help it. I just don't like feeling crappy. And so for me, the self-control is very, very easy. I could look at a piece of cake, but I just know I would feel like crap afterwards. So it's not worth going there. I don't know. I think I'm lucky in that way that I have pretty good control. If I really wanted it, I would probably eat it, but I just don't even, it doesn't do anything for me. I'm more of a protein freak, and I have found when I'm doing a lot of this training that recovering with protein makes me recover a lot quicker. Is that for everybody? I have no idea. I can only tell you that it works for me. And my trainer makes fun of me all the time. He's like, "Why are you my only client that's never sore?" He's like, "I'm pretty sure it's what you do in recovery," which is a lot of protein, a lot of water. It just makes me feel better. It's what I crave. And so really where I eat the most carbs is on the mountain. because you have to. And I will tell everybody under the sun, every time you do an ascent, and it changes per mountain, obviously, with how high we're going, is, every time you get to the top, you need to eat a couple hundred calories and you need to drink a bottle of water every single time, whether you want to or not. And it shouldn't be junky calories. It needs to be stuff that you digest easily. So no, you should know that going into your climb, what do I work well with? It's not time. If there's no time to experiment on the mountain, you need to know it before you get out there. But in general, that's what I said. I wake up hungry every single day. So I have to eat something before I even go work out in the morning, just enough to get me going. But whether it's even a protein bar or a shake, because that early in the morning, I really don't feel like preparing anything and I don't feel like eating much, but I'm starving. So that's the easiest way to get some calories in me to start. But, for me, my body's sort of like a furnace and it burns all day. So I have to eat all day. I'm a big snacker of whatever I can, my snacking is well thought upon, but there's snacks everywhere. I mean, fruit and nuts and protein bars and protein. And I always have leftover salad from the night before, leftover salmon or chicken or whatever I made for the night before. That's a snack for me. What's the difference between eating a 250 calorie chicken cutlet and eating a 250 calorie something else? Nothing. It's still the calories that I need to replenish. It's better for me and it's better for building muscle. So that's a lot of my mindset. But I would say for me, generally, I have a type 1 diabetic husband and a type 1 diabetic son. So if they eat carbohydrates, they have to take a shot of insulin. So, what I started doing for them years ago was just so that there was one less shot they had to take a day. I would make a meal at dinner that was a salad and a protein and 2 vegetables, which had no carbs in it. And then they didn't have to take a shot. And when I started to eat like them, I noticed how much better I felt. I mean, vegetables have carbs in them, but negligible, not tons, and not the kind that really make you feel crappy afterwards. And I started to realize how much better I felt. And from a digestion standpoint, how much significantly better I felt. So I sort of by accident adopted that into my own diet. So that's, I would say my diet is probably very heavy in vegetables and protein. I haven't eaten red meat since I was 16 years old, but I eat chicken and fish and everything else.
Wow.
Yes. So that's, again, I am not qualified to speak about nutrition other than what I personally do and what works for me. But I will tell anybody, really look at what you eat and think about how you physically feel afterwards and how you perform when you eat it. And if you had a really bad workout that day or you weren't into it, try it without it. Eliminate something and try something different. And you'll know that you can tell the difference. I guarantee you can feel the difference if you eat a bowl of pasta or you ate, grilled vegetables and a piece of protein. You are not going to feel that. If you do, I commend you. I wish I could.
Well, thank you, because that is a topic that comes up quite frequently. Good nutrition. And
What
kind
do
of
other people say? Is my answer stock or not so much?
stock, yes. Yep.
Interesting.
It's just clean is
Yes.
what I would call it. I live in the Midwest. We do have friends that are farmers, and so we do know exactly where our beef comes from. We know the butchers that are butchering our beef, and we do get a half a pig. So we do know those pieces, which I do think is different than grocery store, but not everybody is as lucky as we are to have, I guess, locally sourced foods in that.
And listen, I'm spoiled. I live in Florida in the wintertime in the Keys, and I live in the summertime on the Jersey Shore. I'm exposed to fresh fish 9 months out of the year. So I am a little bit spoiled. I'm not going to lie to you. It was funny. We were saying one thing, and I still do believe this, and this may be a bit off topic, but there's a lot of things to save money on, but food's not one of them. Like to me, I don't look at prices in a grocery store. I need what I need. We need what we need to eat. There's a lot of places to save money, but skimping on buying healthy and good and fresh food is not a place to skimp.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah,
I that
I
is
couldn't even
something.
tell I couldn't even tell you how much a gallon of milk is. Like you have to buy it. You buy it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I get vegetables and I put them in my cart and I don't even worry about it, which is very different from probably even a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. very different mindset around quality food that I'm eating.
And by the way, not to mention, it does make your skin look better. It's got a lot more benefits
Yeah.
than just, I mean, it's the inside and the outside. I think it helps both for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else that we should talk about? Anything else that you would like our listeners to know about pickleball, fitness?
Yep. So we'll go back to pickleball because that's where we started. What I didn't tell you about pickleball is that I have made some of my closest and best friends playing. It is a very social sport also. So if you were a tennis player, you would find a foursome and you would go out and play or enter a league or whatever. Pickleball is very different. Most places have what we call open play. You don't have to have a foursome. You just show up and four people go out in the court and play. That's one of the reasons also why I think it's so popular. It's much more social. I've been lucky where down here in Florida, I mean, I would say my closest friends, I met all of them on the pickleball court. My pickleball partner who I play tournaments with, I have two partners, one that I play club tournaments with and one that I play, around the state with. And they are two of my absolute dearest, closest friends. We've won together, we've lost together, but though it's to have a friend that you can compete with, practice with, talk about the sport with, that's been really, really special for me. And I have made tons of friends. I've got a mixed doubles partner that I play with when I don't play with my husband. It's so socially, it's a really it's a very engaging sport for a lot of people, and it's very easy to make friends and get out on a court and play. I highly encourage you to watch if you start watching it on YouTube, you sort of see the action and how fast it is and how fun it is. If you're looking for something to do, it's a great, great way. Even for my kids, I have a 24 to 25-year-old. I'm like, guys, if you're looking to meet girls, go on the pickleball court. You should see the cute ones here. They're adorable. So it's definitely, besides that, it's fun and it's a workout. And I think a lot of it is very healthy for your brain because you really have to think. It's great socially too. So I've yet to find the downside of it. Every part of that sport has really, really helped change, I don't want to say change my life, but given my life a lot to do and given me a lot to do over the last few years. And, I have a text group of people. And right now, if I got on my phone in my text group and I said, who wants to play at 4? I can guarantee you I would get 5 answers within 10 minutes, at least. So it's definitely, for me, it is my social life. I'm getting old. I don't go out as much as I used to. So more of this is fun stuff during the day. And, we have what's called open play here every day at 4:00. My husband and I go almost every single day. It's something that he and I can go do together. We play together. We play against each other. He'll go play with the guys. I'll go play with the girls. But I think that's a really special thing. And I don't know how many other sports you can go out with your spouse and go play. So, look, we're a mixed doubles team tomorrow. That's pretty neat. And so I'm pretty proud of that. But I do think that it is a great social experience also. And when you start to read the forums, you'll see that it's a common comment about the sport. So yes, is it fun? Yes. Does it give me a great workout? Yes. Does it make me think? Sometimes way too hard. But it's also great socially. So you're outside, you're doing something you love, you're in the fresh air, you're meeting people, you're stimulated. I mean, I think that's why I like it so much. When I go back and play tennis, it's like watching paint dry, and it's so much, it's not as fast and it's not as exciting and it's definitely not as social. So
I can't wait to try it.
I encourage you to play. Absolutely.
I am going to make it a goal to play pickleball and see how I like it.
Take some lessons. There's usually what we have called pickleball ambassadors, and they're all over the country, and they're usually in just about every region. And they're not hard to find. And there's a zillion groups on social media about pickleball, but the ambassadors in your area can tell you where to play, where to take lessons, where to do like where do the 2 5s and the 3 0s meet up to play. They're very encouraging, and that's really their job as an ambassador to the sport, is to steer you in the right direction. If you want to find who's a pro that can give me lessons, or where does everybody play, that's really one of their jobs as an ambassador, is to make sure that you have all the information you need about the sport in your area.
I will definitely look into it. I will report to you when I see you at Jackson.
Yes.
Definitely looking forward to that. Joni is climbing. I am volunteering.
Ugh, that's going to be a tough one. It's 19 ascents. I looked at the map. It's straight up and then switch back, switch back, switch back. Oh, it does not look that good. Yeah, that's going to be, that'll be quite a challenge,
Yeah, I
but a
think
great
it
way to
will
start
be.
the season.
It will be. Yes,
And I am
definitely.
confident that you will be a volunteer extraordinaire.
Oh,
Knowing,
absolutely.
it's funny. I think the best volunteers are the ones that have been on both sides because they really get it.
Mhm.
So I have no doubt that you will be amazing.
Well, thank you. I am looking forward to being absolutely amazing.
One of these days when I stop being so selfish and I stop climbing all the mountains, I'll volunteer at one.
Yeah, I like you climbing.
Well, for right now, I like me climbing too, but one of these days, my time will be done.
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I cannot believe that the two of us broke down a little bit and got a little emotional for
Ooh, I don't know where that came from.
the two non-emotional people, but it was an absolute pleasure talking to you. I cannot wait to give you a hug at Jackson. And thank you very, very much for being on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me.
To all of our listeners, stay awesome and keep reaching for your anything.